America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live quite often now because I want to help you get through these times of anxiety without squandering your life or squandering the opportunities that, a Trump presidency may present, because we have to make lemonade out of lemons, people. And that's our lot. And I'm here to help you make lemonades out of lemons. And so it's not obvious how the Dems screwed this up. Well, it's not obvious to some people how the Dems screwed this up. I'm going to try to make it a little bit more obvious to you, lucky people. And one of the issues was economic anxiety. Now, I will tell you, and I've said before, that Biden could have brought inflation down to 2019 levels. He could have... he could have brought inflation down to 2019 levels, and he still would have lost for reasons of economic anxiety. So it's not necessarily the prices of things. It's not necessarily that you have a job. It's not because unemployment, at least for the whites, isn't that bad. It's not necessarily that you have a job. You still don't feel comfortable in your life path, and you don't feel like any of the plans that you make will be respected. And you also think that at any point in time, through some careless act of governance, an expensive problem can come your way. Right? First things first, if you're ever punishing people for making plans for their lives, you're not doing it right. If government can do one thing, it can honor other people's plans for their lives. If anything happens and you're not honoring someone else's plan for their life, you're like, that's a bad thing. So we understand that, and we just want to put that as a baseline. Freedom is about being able to make plans and realize them. And in order to make plans and realize them, the world has to be stable and intelligible. It needs to be stable, and you need to understand the rules governing it. That way you could pursue your end or what you want to do in a way that's stable. Democrats do not create a stable world. This was nowhere more clear than with COVID. They just closed your schools. They didn't actually prioritize how can we make sure that we stabilize this person's life. We'll just close your schools and then throw you Zoom schools. Not only are they careless in closing schools, they gave you a markedly inadequate solution and pretending that it's adequate. Republicans are a little bit different this way, because when they hose you, they hose you from the front. You can kind of plan for that. They're coming right at you. Democrats are like careless and incompetent. So they might like do bad things by mistake. The biggest Republican mistake I remember is like Gulf II, the Iraq War. I feel like Democrats make careless mistakes because they try, but they don't think through things rather often. And that is what creates economic anxiety. That is what creates economic anxiety, the Dem carelessness. With Republicans, it's going to be malicious, dereliction of duty, a little bit of ethnic chauvinism kind of thrown in there. But with Dems, it'll be tryhards who care poorly, carelessness. And that carelessness will end in them telling your kid something stupid and then not having to deal with the consequence. That careless will end with, a Dem therapist telling your wife to divorce you, and then all of a sudden you're divorced. Like, Dems give bad advice. They're bad, and it's a carelessness. Like, there's a carelessness if we want to pretend that Joe Biden was hiding his dementia. Because if the Dems are right, they didn't know how bad he was, right? That's why they had to cancel their primary. So either they're malicious and wanted to get Kamala Harris in as the nominee without having a primary, or they're careless and it was surprising. It was somehow surprising. Democratic carelessness is dangerous, and it frustrates the ability to make plans from your life. Because sure, if Joe Biden brings down inflation now, the Dems are so careless that like it could just go up by mistake. Do you really trust that he knows how he brought it down? It could just go up again. So, the conservative argument against big government in general is that we don't really know how things work. We just know that they work, so don't change anything. That's Edmund Burke's argument. Dems, through their carelessness and sanctimoniousness, think they know how things work in such a way that they will carelessly screw it around. They'll carelessly screw around with standing institutions that they don't quite know how they work. Right? So, and that carelessness ends up frustrating other people's plans. And as soon as you introduce frustration into other people's plans, that's like they'll vote for the other people. That is economic anxiety. So economic anxiety is not necessarily going to be reflected in the job numbers. It's not necessarily going to be reflected in people's salary. It's going to be reflected in the stability with which they can plan their lives. And let me tell you, a lot of problems from carelessness are very expensive. If you, like I say, careless when you screw up your kids. If you're careless when you screw up your kids, those the lawyers for screwed up kids are pretty expensive, right? All of the medical bills that come with screwed up kids are very expensive. There are like all the rehab stints that go with screwed up kids are very expensive. So there's a quality of carelessness that Dems bring to justice, bring to political concerns that you don't really find under Republican governance. You find different issues, but not that kind of carelessness. Not people who tried hard, but just were incompetent. And I think that happens a lot. There are a lot of like, well, I didn't do it on purpose when you go with Democrats. Because honestly, now that the party's so feminized, it's brought in that whole ethic of not being able to take accountability. So, like, the Dem hypocrisy is frustrating and also dangerous, right? You can't trust the Dems to do democracy. Now, and there's a way in which and that you can't trust Republicans, but they're more forthright about it. I don't know who I'd rather trust. If I had a group of Republicans and a group of Democrats, and they were both charged with counting ballots in rooms, I think they would both cheat. And except like the Karl Roves would cheat more like forthrightly than the Dems would cheat. The Dems would cheat. The resistance liberals would cheat and then tell some sort of excuse about why they didn't cheat. They might even pass a lie detector. like Dems are just untrustworthy in their carelessness with respect to governance. And so that's why people don't trust Dems, like to make sure that the world's going to stay stable so that when they make plans for their lives with the world and pursue it through the world has to stay stable enough for the plans to be realized. Right? So you make plans under Republican governance, things stay the way they're supposed to stay. You make plans under Democratic governance, like someone might, get a feeling, like you might hurt someone's feelings and then like have to go. So there's a weird asymmetry. There's a weird asymmetry with respect to the way Dems solve problems. Also, I think they are too quick to put market-based solutions to anxieties caused by the market. Obamacare is a great example of this. So some people got better health care because of Obamacare, but they were still not very comfortable or at ease with their health care because of market fluctuations. Now you're on the market and things are expensive and plans come and go and you don't have all these options. And now things are like there's a level of bureaucracy between you and your health care that I guess might work a little bit better than before when you just got flat rejected, but it's still not quite comfortable because it's still anxiety inducing. Obamacare is still anxiety inducing. And the reason you want a government is to protect you from the fluctuations and the dynamism of the markets. Now you want markets because markets lead to innovation and all of these things, but you want a government to protect you from the anxiety that goes with market society. And the Obamacare doesn't do that, right? So you introduce market-based solutions to problems caused by the market. People don't understand that the GOP is better with families. I've said before, and I think I'll say in almost every show, liberals are the worst parents in the United States. The GOP is better with families, but the first thing the family does, and the only reason you have, not the only reason you have family, but one of the virtues of a family is that it protects you from market mediations. It protects you from market fluctuations. The family is there with you for richer, for poor, for better, for worse, blah, 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 until liberals and often Democrats screw that up. They turn families into market relations, right? So they'll screw up everything they touch. By the way, there's a word that gets thrown around and probably will get thrown around in the next 4 years. It's neoliberalism. I'm going to give you a quick definition of neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is bringing in market principles to every aspect of life, treating everything like a market. And if you don't want your family to be treated like a market, if you don't want everything to be treated like a market, if you don't want even politics to be treated like a market, then neoliberalism is not going to be your friend, right? So Democrats screw up everything that calls for anxiety to be removed. They insert carelessness, but they think caring is enough, even if they're bad at it or careless at it. I'd rather take the person who doesn't care very much, but is actually competent. And the Democrats do not, are openly incompetent. And I think this was on display in the COVID response, but just a fundamental unseriousness about taking responsibility for what happens that you don't get with the GOP in the same way. It won't be the same quality of carelessness. And so that is why people don't trust Republicans. That's why people don't trust Democrats, because there's a carelessness that goes with their order, and it's not a party of builders. It's a party of, scolds, wives, and, now in the South, black people, right? So there's already like a lack of responsibility built into just people who haven't been in power, in a meaningful way, right? You look at democratic cities. They're not particularly enjoyable often. They're often not particularly enjoyable. And there was just like I said, an ethic of carelessness. We're just not serious about solving the problems of even our own cities. And California is swinging back Republican. Remember, California is stably blue, but, when I grew up there was Prop 187. There were just a lot of, there's still a good plurality of white jerks who wanted things a certain way and would do what they wanted to do to keep it that way. And that was California when I grew up there. So what do we mean? Let's talk about jobs. So how do Dems screw up with jobs? Well, you say that people feel anxious about their economy and they feel anxious about their job. And then the Dems will say, in aggregate, they point to macro statistics. Well, the unemployment rate's low, so you can't feel anxious about your job. Or, your wages went up possibly, so you can't feel anxious about your job. But you still feel anxious about your job because at any point in time, there could be a mood in the Democratic administration and then your job goes away, or it's all like some sort of market grant. Your job was dependent on a grant. And, the winds shift, or there's a lot of paperwork between you and your grant. And so it was always kind of up in the air. And just the way we talk about getting jobs in general is a little bit unfortunate, because in a well-ordered world, you would have a right to a job, but the market would decide which job, or the political process would decide which job, right? So getting a job, because you need access to money in America, because America costs. Everything costs here. You walk outside, you're always liable to trip and get a fine. You need money. You need access to money, secure access to money if you're going to be free in any other way. And the access to money needs to be secure because you need to be able to, get fired and jeopardize your job and piss off your boss and do things. You need to be able to do things, right? So, in a well-ordered world, anybody who wanted a job would go to the employment office. Well, first they would look at the market, and if the market didn't have anything that worked with them, they would go to the employment office, fill out a simple form, and then at the end of filling out that simple form, no cover letter, it's fill out a simple form, they would be told to come back on Monday. And Monday would start a longer interview/sorting process for which that person would be paid $14 an hour for enduring. All right. And then after that process at the employment office, they would be sorted into a job. And that job would pay $25 an hour, and they would be trained on the job to do that job based on their skills, their antecedent skills and where they wanted to develop. Right. That is a well-ordered world in a modern society where we just understand that people need to, people need money in order to live, but you can't just give people money because one, that leads to inflation. Two, it leads to a society of makers and takers, and everyone has to participate. So, liberals get this upset. Actually, not liberals, more the weak left. The weak left is anti-work, and they just think that you should get a UBI and just get paid for living. And that is not appropriate because you need people to work on you. You need people to make you, good roads. You need doctors to actually prod and administer procedures to you. You need other people working on you. So you have to participate in the system that works for them. And so I am pro-worker. And I believe that everyone should work. And by the way, if you appreciate the work I'm doing for you, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month. And I will keep helping you make sense of your life under Trump in this America. And why a real right to work, is a federal job guarantee. And that is the way forward for the left. If you don't know it, but it would include an employment office where you go and you are slotted into a job. Now the job could have, we could have different shifts. The regular 9 to 5, you can have second shift 3 to 11. You can have third shifts overnight. And then you could have the parent shift, 5 to 2 or whatever. So you can come home and hang out with your kids after and do that, which is actually, I think, an enjoyable shift. But it would be an employment office that understood and recognized that in order to be a functioning America, you need a right to a job. And that would be an appropriate, economic solution, not just saying there's an infrastructure bill. There's an infrastructure bill that creates jobs. For whom? How do you get these jobs? What is this going to entail? That just adds more insecurity in my life. And then what happens when the project runs out? That's not a state that is serious about being the employer of last resort, which is what a functional modern state should be serious about. There should be no involuntary unemployment. The economists who don't get that understand what freedom means. Means you got to work, but there should be no involuntary unemployment. That means everybody should be able to have access to a job, a real right to work, everyone that meets their needs. And this could be worked out with the interviewer at the employment office, but everybody has the right to a job. Right? By the way, there was people will say the government can't do that. That won't work. Actually, it will. India did it. Has a rural program that's very similar. And it turns out that it led to higher private sector employment too, because once people got used to working and understanding that working was part of their life, they became just better employees in general. So they would move from the public sector job to the private sector job. And plus the public sector job, like it was like the equivalent of the WPA. It made the quality of infrastructure so that like roads and schools, everything got better. For example, the jobs we would have in the United States, that would be federal job guarantee. Like we would just get class sizes down to 2 for K through 3. Like for K through third grade, you would spend half your time with just pretty much a tutor and just work it out that way. And that would be like, that would put good people to work doing important things, and actually then our scores would go up. Because right now our public schools are made for kids who learn most of what they learn from their parents and have good parents. And that's fine for the people who have good parents, like my kids thrive. But for a lot of people who don't have great parents, they're kind of screwed. Their kids do not learn what they need to learn, right? So if we're actually serious about guaranteeing people an education, no matter what kind of parents they come through, and also guaranteeing people a job, which we should if they're going to be free, because you can't be both free and worried about being fired at the same time. Then you shrink class sizes and you hire people to shrink class sizes. There's so much work that can be done. That's not going to be done by AI, and it's not going to be done by robots. That has to be done by people. It's just, there's not a profit in it, and it's not obvious. There's no profit motive to making sure that poor black kids can read. It's not profitable, but it allows them to be good citizens. And insofar as being a good citizen is a right as an American, and we need people to, we need our colleagues to be able to understand argument and read and do math, then it's still the duty of the state to secure the development of the children, and could do so through this federal job guarantee, through this federal job program. I would like more, paying people to record old people's stories. And I would like better archives, and if you gave me public media, public newspapers, if you gave me, like, if we were serious about the right to work, we could make the United States actually a great place to live. All corners of it too. And there would be a nice rail line to get to all corners of it because we would have a public infrastructure, right? So Dems create economic anxiety by introducing market solutions to problems caused by being on the market and always on the market. Like Dems screwed up marriage by like just casualizing divorce. So now, even when you're married, you're still kind of on the market. That's like, nobody wants that culture. Actually, like nobody responsible wants that culture. You get punished for expecting biological grandbabies, but Dems will market to your kids that they're same sex or trans, and something that will get in the way of your aspiration to have grandkids. Right? And we admit that marketing works. The only people who don't admit that marketing works are people like in marketing who are paid not to admit that marketing works. And we have to understand that, sexuality is marketed. And so, Dems will carelessly make your kid a sexuality in a way that will frustrate your plans for your grandkids. And like I said before, at the beginning of the video, I told you that it is through carelessness that democratic governance like screws up people's plans. And anytime you're screwing up people's plans, you're making a problem for them. Anytime you're screwing up people's plans, you're getting in the way of their freedom, because freedom is very little else than the ability to make plans and realize them. So if you're screwing up people's plans, and Dems are careless about this, they will screw up the plans you have for your family. They'll screw up the plans you have for your work. They'll screw up the plans you have for your political milieu. And that matters. That matters, right? So, someone says the pandemic exacerbated precarious work, side hustles that slowly became the only available work. That's true. And the Democrats are not really serious about that, serious about like securing jobs and what it means that they would just like shut down the economy. Like fundamentally unserious, what it means that they would just shut down schools. Fundamentally unserious people. fundamentally unserious people. And no, that's an issue. And I think that people remember they'll be fundamentally unserious about like making you get a vaccine that then might give you all these other problems. Who knows? But can you really trust Democrats to be serious about the problem? And then to actually take the externality, the unintended consequence seriously. Right? I still haven't heard an apology for closing schools, from any Democratic leader. Closing schools and closing the economy and thinking maybe we went too far. That's just, they don't think that way. There's a fundamental lack of accountability. The party should be very disappointed, not just that Kamala Harris lost, but the process that led to the process that led to Joe Biden being picked by party elites in whatever happened between Super Tuesday and 2020, being picked by party elites. Because remember, Bernie won Las Vegas and Iowa. So he was picked by party elites, and he was old and doddering and couldn't campaign then, but the Dems shoved him down our throats through their carelessness. And then it turns out that he just got older, but then they wouldn't tell us about it so that they could shove Kamala Harris down her throat, who, once again, in a feat of Dem carelessness, raised $1 billion, blew through it, and now is in the hole $20 million. Careless people. That's the kind of stuff, you hear stories about that, and it makes you think, well, if they're going to do that with the money they raised, that's what they do with our tax dollars. I can't let these people, they're just going to waste our tax dollars because they're fundamentally irresponsible people. So Democrats don't understand how their policies create anxiety, how liberalism creates anxiety, and how families and institutions and kind of conservative principles actually quiet anxiety because by preaching a quality of carefulness as opposed to carelessness. A careless liberalism will screw up so many families. You have no idea. Tell me why can't you tell us how Republicans are going to make your life great? Republicans aren't going to make your life great. You got to make lemonade out of lemons, but they'll show you the lemons. Democrats will tell you they'll make your life great, try to make your life great, and be so bad at it that now you have to be confused about why your life isn't great. There's a careless incompetence that goes with Democratic governance. No, Republicans will not make your life great. I think Donald Trump, but here's what Republicans will do. Right now, Donald Trump is trying to get reparations for white people who have had to deal with harassment for being on the wrong side of DEI and all of this stuff. That doesn't sound great. However, if it actually works, that sets up the conversation for reparations, right? So that's how you make lemonade out of lemons. That's how you make lemonade out of lemons. And I also think the conversation for legacy-based reparations is still open. The Supreme Court didn't take that out. Legacy-based reparations, even if you cut me out with my African daddy, I'm just a African. Even if you cut me out, legacy-based reparations would be fantastic for Black America, and I would get a contact high from being next to Black America. My mom's from South Carolina. My dad's from Ghana. I grew up in LA. I consider myself American, making better Americans and making you a better American. But if you Black people, you don't want to consider me Black because I'm a African, that's fine. I just want you to get paid, because when Black people get paid and when Black people come from good families and all of that stuff and have secure property lands, my life is better. And it'll increase the chances of my daughters finding a Black mate and my son finding a Black woman who's not, a problem. So, so Democrats create anxiety by introducing market solutions to market problems. Why should partial ADOS be excluded from reparations? Partial ADOS should be excluded from reparations because the damage that was done to Black people who are ADOS is multifaceted. Like, one of the reasons I am at a better place in my life than I would be if I were ADOS is because of my dad, who was Ghanaian. Right. And so, like, I didn't grow up with a lot of kind of the unfortunate sensibilities that are the product of, a Jim Crow family going right into market liberalism. I lucked out. I lucked out, right? So a lot of ADOS were owed better parents. You should have had better parents. You should have had parents who could have worked out their problems instead of getting divorced. You simply should have had better parents. But you didn't have better parents because your parents were either traumatized by Jim Crow or were fodder for market liberalism, and then decided that the family was just a business, and so they just kind of didn't know how to hold their nonsense together, and they didn't know how to parent you. Right. So, like, ADOS deserved better parents than they got. And so you need to get reparations, not just for the property that was stolen, not just from the work that was stolen, not just from the inheritance that was stolen, but also for the fact that your parents were screwed up by these United States. This United States government robbed you of the parents you should have had. Market liberalism is an intriguing topic to explore. Yeah, market liberalism is great because you get all of these interesting projects and interesting products and services, and people are free to create and marketable products and services, which is great, and you get innovation and all of that. But everything in your life that is a good and service provided by somebody else shouldn't be fodder for the market, right? And your ability to provide and participate in receiving goods and services you need for your life and your family and all of that shouldn't just be fodder for the market. Right? So we need production, and we need market production, but we also need a sphere of non-market production. We need a sphere from non-market production. And I think that is perfectly appropriate. And the fact of a job, the fact that you need a good job isn't something that's just like, isn't a factor of the market, right? So everyone needs to be guaranteed a good job. What that job is a different issue. But the idea that you can both be free and precarious in your job is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And the idea that all of the services that are required to actually be free in the United States are just kind of supplied magically is ridiculous. Like, so we did this with the Homestead Acts. The Homestead Acts in the 19th century, was a recognition of the idea that you can't really be free in the United States and not have access to property. There were too many propertyless people. So, Lincoln decided to take the Native Americans' property. Lincoln actually thought that you couldn't be free and work for somebody. He thought that working for somebody was just something that you do partially. The psychological, Lincoln thought that, first let me finish the point. Lincoln thought that working was something you did temporarily as you were an apprentice, but eventually all really free people have their own business and are free that way. Right? They don't actually have a master or a boss. Right? Industrial economy is a little bit more complicated than that, but this is how Lincoln was. And this is why we had the Homestead Acts, because the idea was that in order to be really free, you needed, your own property. And so we took the Native Americans' property. That's one problem, but the idea isn't wrong, which is when I look at the fact that black people now only have a 45% home ownership rate, which is worse than it was, civil rights era, like worse than it was 60 years ago, 70 years ago. That is not great for us. That is not great for us. And the white home ownership rate, 72%. But you can't be both free and renting. And you can't be both free and renting in a world where you don't really know what the rent's going to be from month to month. So the psychological out that black immigrants have that is in the comments right now. Yeah, well, one whole side of my family I know is the product of rape. Like my mom, like I said, my mom's from South Carolina. Her last name's Graham, and she's from Lake City, where there's like black Grahams, and then over you go a little farther outside of town, there are white Grahams, and everybody know that they all have the same granddaddy. And to be black in America is to be a product of rape, and we're not really honest about the shame that causes, and we're not really honest about like the sexual violence that's just part of the black identity, and the sexual violence that's part of the white identity. But part of what it is to be black in the United States is to be a product of rape. Not necessarily so on my, and like, we're not honest about what that does to people, and the shame that it brings, a tacit shame, like knowing that like your granddaddy raped my grandma. Like, and that the United States puts our rapists on money. Like, like Andrew Jackson's on money. We put rapists on money in the United States. We call them founding fathers. And one thing we definitely know about them, as much as we know about Thomas Jefferson writing the Declaration of Independence, we definitely know that he was raping his slaves. So, to be black in the United States is to be a descendant of rape in a way that we're not really honest about. And what that means, Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about this in his newest books a little bit, The Message. But we're just really not honest about the sexual vulnerability that what that means, like of like what it means that a whole people's family relationships were like they were just a product of rape. Like a whole people. That is a defining characteristic. And I see that in, like I said, one side of my family, but the other side of the family is different. The other side of the family is different. Right? So, yeah, I do have a cultural advantage by being a African. So when we make black people whole in the United States, it's okay if I get left out a little bit. I'm okay. If my life becomes exponentially better if every other black person in the United States gets the whole, gets what they're owed. By the way, if you appreciate what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing. And just think about the anxiety that Democrats create, because apparently, and I'm friends with a lot of other kind of academics, and once Trump won, apparently white men on campus started feeling themselves. And not necessarily in a bad way, kind of like black guys started feeling themselves once Black Panther came out back in 2018. So they're standing up a little bit taller, which I find amusing. Now, they might screw this up, but it's been a complicated last stretch for white guys, especially on university campuses, and young ones, especially young ones who want to be good. But maybe we started with Bernie and then went to Trump because dealing with liberal feminists is exhausting, and they get a little bit of vindication that their torturers and that their bullies are actually bullies, and that their scolds are actually merely scolds, and that these women who apparently don't have any power will no longer be ruling their lives in the same way. So apparently white guys on campuses all over the United States are actually not as dejected as they were before. So if Democrats want to not create economic anxiety. They need to stop shacking up with liberty, shacking up with justice by providing solutions that might actually, feel like they give you better results, but actually create more instability and actually secure rights. Democrats need to secure rights. They need to secure a right to a job. They need to not give you Obamacare, which is shacking up with justice, saying like, oh, you get medical care in a way that you didn't before. They need to actually secure a scheme for actual medical care. You work any job, you get medical care. And here we're going to guarantee you the opportunity, like guarantee you a job, a good job. Right? Because, there's a difference between shacking up and there's a difference between marriage, right? Shacking up, you seem to get all the right goods. You can have kids, you can have the sex, you can share a place, you can do all the things, but it's still an unstable relationship. That's what Democrats put out for life. That's the energy Democrats give. We're going to let everybody shack up. Democrats need to put out that marriage energy. But that also comes with accountability and working out problems that that liberals don't like. That like they need to put out that like, all right, you're guaranteed a job. All right, you're guaranteed health care. You're not going to do Obamacare. You're not going to have to go through like 18 forms. You're not going to have to write a fake cover letter. You're not going to have to, no. If you want a job, you go to the employment office. You sit down for an interview. You immediately get paid when you come back. And then you'll get a real wage once you get on the job training. People don't want educational opportunities. People don't want trade schools where then you have to still go out and apply for a job and hope. No, they want a job. They want a job. They want to sign up for a job, not a lottery. Right? If the United States is a lottery, Democrats will give you more lottery tickets and say like, see, you have more lottery tickets. Shouldn't you be happy? And you'll be like, yeah, I guess I have a better chance. But like, I don't want lottery tickets. I want like the job, right? Republicans will say like, well, you know what? There are too many people in the lottery, so we'll kick out the immigrants. So there'll be a smaller lottery pool, but you'll still be in the lottery pool. And we'll make the rules for the lottery clearer because Democrats will have like some Byzantine rules for the lottery. And have everybody playing, but then we'll give you a bunch of tickets. Republicans will say like they'll have very simple rules, and they'll kick out all the immigrants from the lottery pool, but you'll still have a lottery. We need a real left that will say like, no, your life shouldn't be a matter of a lottery. Let's sit down, figure out a job for you, and because every single American, in order to be a functioning American, needs to have access to a good job. So like, let's work this out and you'll get paid for the program. Like, this is what FDR wanted to do. In his third term, he came out with a list of a second Bill of Rights, which included the job, medical care, and education. And it was just simple. We're just going to guarantee these as a matter of right. And you can just work out the details at a lower level. But we're going to just guarantee these as a matter of right. And that's what we should have done. That's what we should have done. No more lottery tickets, no more Obamacare. Just guarantee it as a matter of right. Now, you have to participate in the system. We could have disability for people who are broken, but for the most part, a lot of people can do a lot of different things. So I think we need to have a more accommodating, especially public sector economy that can deal with what people who are now considered disability, but actually can work, and then put them to work and then pay them very well for working and give them all the benefits they have for participating in the system. So that is not a market-based situation. That is not a market-based solution because I think the anxiety is caused by the anxiety of having all of your goods and services produced by the market. Like, Obamacare does not make people less anxious. And then the fact of Democratic carelessness, it does not make people less anxious. When you don't have a job, hearing about Biden's infrastructure bill does not make you less anxious. Or if you're precarious about your grant running out and your job leaving, hearing about the infrastructure bill does not make you feel less anxious. You know what make you feel less anxious? Knowing that you can go to an employment office and get a good job because your government secures you a good job in these United States. Because your government understands that you can't really be free and functional in all of your other aspects of freedom without a good job. So it'll step in as the employer of last resort. Right? So there's literature on this on the federal job guarantee. And people ask, what about the universal basic income? No, you can't just give people money because, one, that leads to inflation. Two, it creates a society of people who can't do anything, who can't accommodate other people, and a society of useless crafters. By the way, if you want me to be more than a useless crafter, go to www.funkyacademic.com, kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, and let's build this out for the next 4 years. Why not? Let's do it. I'm giving you a quality of, now I'm not going to put it behind a paywall because I want it to get out, but I do think that, one, you need to share this with everyone, and two, tell them what I'm doing. And three, just go in and become like a paid subscriber for trying to make your life better. How are black women able to find so much success in the job market compared to two brothers? They're not as intimidating. White men are not as threatened by black women as they are by black men. Because I might sleep with your daughter. Done it before. All right, so white men, like this is the question. How were black women able to find so much success in the job market compared to brothers? Black women are simply not as intimidating as black men. They're not as threatening to black men. They are not as powerful as black men in some ways. Right? So that's why black women do better. So if you want a black person, and who's easier to control, you'd rather, roll the dice on a black woman or maybe a gay guy. You don't want to roll the dice on me. I'm not particularly easy to control. I talk back. And not in a way. I talk back with a little bit of bass in my voice. Well, a little bit of bass in my voice. But, so in a pinch, you're going to want a black woman if you're a white company that needs black people. You're going to want an Oprah because black guys might talk back. And, there's a reason why black women weren't lynched in the same way that black men were, because black men are a more revolutionary demographic. Yeah. Yeah. So someone was told, I was literally told by another black guy that the white boss told him that he was too masculine for a promotion. Yeah, that's you know how many grown-ass black men I know who have to not take up space, who have to be pretty much functionally render themselves mute in order to participate at the job, and sometimes at their own house. And then that screws up a whole generation of black boys who now have to functionally render themselves mute in order to participate in the system. So any black man who's in the system, who actually participates in America in any respected position, ends up being mute or soft. And then all the other black people who've been kicked out of any sort of institutions are kind of ignorant because they've been kicked out of any institution, but they're loud, right? So that's not how we win, right? I want black people and part of being free is to be able to be black on the job without being fear of recrimination. And we're not free yet. I'm a pretty free Negro. I'm one of the freest Negroes you're going to hear because I'm not looking for corporate sponsorship. We can create our own. No, someone says, we can create our own. No, you can't, Negro. No, you can't. You do not have what commercial property do you have? This is a capitalist economy. What commercial property do you have? What compelling power do you have? What can you make other people do? You can't make other people do stuff. If you can't make other people do stuff, you can't come we can't just magically create our own. We have no institutions to institutionalize us. We have no autonomous institutions in order to institutionalize us because institutions take disposable income. And we don't have disposable income. all of our incomes like put in contingency funds for our kids and like our basic loved ones. White people have disposable incomes. So like this idea that like if we all just come together, no, we don't have enough. Things are expensive. Anybody who thinks, well, if we all just come together has never looked at an institutional budget. Has never looked at an institutional budget. Institutional budgets are millions and millions of dollars. Institutional budgets are millions and millions of dollars. Black people, when we put our pennies together, we do not have millions and millions of dollars for an institution. Our money is already tied up. You can say, like, we have, so shouldn't you try? What does trying even look like? One person can't do anything. And what, you're going to go door to door and say like, well, if we all just kind of come together, we can do what? Buy what? What can you buy? You can't buy shit, right? So this is why all of these like, well, if you just buy black and do, like we don't own commercial land and the factors of production. We don't own heavy equipment. We don't own power companies. We don't own large farms. Large cooperative ownership worked in the past. Like, how do you coordinate people who are already struggling and barely making it up? Like this isn't. This is why we need reparations, people. This is why we need reparations. Yeah, ADS are like stray cats. Like, have you ever tried to herd stray cats? That's actually great. ADOS are that's like going up to a bunch of cats, a bunch of stray cats, and saying, "Why don't you guys just organize?" Like that's not how we've been built. That's not how we've been made. Like we can't. Everyone lies to us, so we can't even trust each other. Pretty much every ADOS is like on their own. Because of the, I don't know, like we can't even hold together our own families. You're talking about holding together huge institutions. Like there's a reason why Umar's school was never going to work. Not because necessarily it was a bad idea, but because we don't have it. We don't have that kind of disposable money diffuse in the community. You can tell about, what about the celebrities? No, they have plans for their money and they don't even have it because things are expensive. Like black celebrities make money by kissing butt to white people. Athletes, like they don't have it the way you have that. Why do you think so many go broke and get busted? Because they try to pretend that they have it when they don't even know what it means. Part of what it means to have it is like you're surrounded by people who have it. And black people who have it don't live next to black people. It doesn't matter what kind of plans you have. It doesn't matter. We don't have the quality of money that it takes to do a new Black Wall Street, right? But they raised a ton of money for a campaign. What do you even think? Like, all right, so you don't know what a ton of money is. Whoever new entity is, you don't even know what a ton of money is, right? Umar raised $500,000 for a school. Do you know how much money it takes to run a school? If you want a lot more than $500,000, right? And all your students are going to be scholarship students. And like, you don't understand what real money is. So a lot of the people who think, well, if we can just, if we all just kind of come together, we can do it. They don't understand what real money is and what real institutions cost. They've never actually seen an organizational budget. Disorganization might be a survival strategy. Yeah. All right. So one of the things we talk about with respect to immigrant population is they get to leave all of their, broke cousins over there. They get to leave all of their family relations over there. The ones who might be problematic, they get to leave them over there and forget about them. That's not the case for ADOS. So to be ADOS is to be kin to a lot of problems. To be ADOS is to be kin to a lot of problematic Negroes. Even Jay-Z's talking about having to cut people off. And Jay-Z's a whole billionaire, and he can't even take care of his family. Like, what kind of freedom is that if you can't take care of your family? So you have to understand that disorganization might be a survival strategy, pattern breaker. You might be right about that. The Great Migration, all the black people who left from the South that were run out of southern towns for a variety of reasons. One of the perks they got to do was they got to kind of emancipate themselves from the more derelict aspects of their family. And that might be something, right? That might actually be a survival strategy when everybody is destitute and traumatized, right? So you just have to take seriously why our families are a mess. And once again, like a lot of these no-fault divorces that are casual divorces, they're survival strategies from one of the spouses, and not because a survival strategy because they're necessarily being abused, but just because they just don't want to be poor. And being attached to a Negro invites poverty. Now I joke about this quite a bit because it's actually important. When you marry a black guy, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and health, you have to know that you're going to have to deal probably with all of those things. It's a crapshoot. So if you actually just say the vows, but you don't understand what that means, that's why our divorce rates are what they are. A lot of people mouth the vows because they saw some white people mouth the vows and like they don't really understand what that means. But no, you're marrying a Negro. And if you marry me, richer for poor, for better, for worse, things are going to get worse. I'm hilarious. So they're going to get better too, but they're going to get worse. We will be poor. We will be rich. And we don't live very long. So there will be a sickness and health matters, right? So you need to just kind of understand that if escaping and disorganization is a survival strategy, being with me is the opposite of a survival strategy. I'm a liability. So all the people who get on my case about having a white wife, listen, she was up to taking the liability. She was up to taking the liability. So you should thank her for taking, a liability off your hands. One who still speaks for the people. One who still speaks for the people. And, I don't get mad. I don't get mad. I always used to joke around that I'm a very divorceable type of guy. Like I never really got mad at people who, at sisters or anybody who like did not look at me in the kind of way I carry myself and all that stuff and didn't think that man's not husband material, because in their mind, husband material, I might not be, right? Now it turns out I'm good at a lot of the things, but if one of the things was, being a provider and a protector and all that stuff that you see on TV, like I know how this would have ended between us. It would have ended in a divorce, and that was not going to be me. So I always put that. I led with that. I led with that in all of my relationships, and all the serious relationships. Yeah, I told this story before that, my first date with my wife, we went out, $35 dinner. And then afterwards I said, like, look, I just got paid and I bought this bicycle. And so we really can't go out for another 2 weeks. And I was deadly serious. Like, I just said, like, I like you and, this is great, but like, we can't go out for another 2 weeks because, I just bought this bicycle and I saved up for that. And it's my bike. And so I don't have any more money. I'm tapped. So, and a lot of sisters would have jumped ship with that. And because not only am I that guy, I'm also mouthy. So I'll tell you like something that's wrong with you. So not only I'm both broke and mouthy. So, sisters, you dodged a bullet with me. I'm broke and mouthy. You didn't want this. And that's where we are. That's where we are. And let's be honest about what security looks like. And I think people should be honest about their relationships, honest with people in their relationships. I also think people should spend more time with their kids and read more books and a lot of things. And I also think they should go to www.funkyacademic.com. No, I ride a bicycle, not a motorcycle, a bicycle. I bought a bicycle. Let me be very clear. Yeah, I also think you should go to www.funkyacademic.com, kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, and we can keep this conversation going. How long ago was that when you and your wife first started? 2008. 2008. I was working at a bookstore in Chicago. Obama had actually come into my bookstore. I served him. I snuck a note. I'll tell you my story with Obama. I felt like a spy. All right, so I'm working at my bookstore. Not my bookstore. I don't own it. I'm just a cashier. I'm working at the bookstore, and Obama, first the Secret Service comes in, and then I was like, ooh, some serious-looking white guys just come in. And then this is before the election. It's like September, right? So he is already the nominee, but before he had actually won the race. So Secret Service comes in. Then this really, really handsome guy comes in. Good looking. First thing you notice is like, that's a handsome dude. And then I look closer. I was like, oh shit, that's Barack Obama. So the first thing in 2008, the first thing you notice about Barack Obama is that is a good looking dude. No pores. Like everything was like, he was a good looking guy, handsome. And people actually forget the thirst trap Obama. I was in Chicago at the time. They were like, black women the thirst was real for Obama in a way that you didn't really, people kept their cool for Kamala. But, so Obama like floats in. First thing you know is, oh, that's a good looking dude. Oh, hey, that's Obama. He comes in with his daughter. I do have a Cash App. You can Cash App me. Just go to my YouTube page. It's in the description, I believe. So he comes in with his daughter, buys a bunch of books and kind of a stack, some kind of trashy mystery novels, all of that stuff. And then when he comes up to my book, and when he comes up with his stack of books, I check him out. He spins to talk to his daughter, and this is when I make my spy move. Because remember, I got the Secret Service looking at me, and I'm like, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so I write a note. I get a pen, and I had prepared this note while he was shopping because I had a plan, but I didn't know if I was Mission Impossible enough to actually pull it off. So I write the note, and on the note I said, I hope you send your child to public school if you're elected. Because I thought it would be a fantastic move if, she went to the local school. And I know they didn't go to the local school in Hyde Park because I lived kind of close to them. But it would be really good if the president sent the kid to the local public school. So I wrote that a note, and then he gives me a book. He gives me a stack of books, and then wheels to his daughter, and I could feel the Secret Service looking at me. He's talking to his daughter about something, and I'm just like, whew, whew, and I slip the note into his book. It was a John le Carré book. He's a mystery novel. I slipped the note into his novel. I hope you send your kid to public school. And then I ring him up, and that was that. But man, it was a lot. I felt like a spy making a drop, like in the middle of the Cold War. Because, I didn't know. I just thought I was just punching above my weight. So like I slipped the note in, and I felt gangster. I mean, it's 16 years later, and I'm telling the story. I think I'd be a lot more bold now than I was then. But I felt pretty gangster. Now I also said that I'd worked for him because I moved to Chicago. I did work. I'd interned in his office when he was a senator. I'll tell the story about that at another time because I got let go as an intern for Obama because I was standing up for black people. I'll just tell the whole story. So I'm working for Obama, and it's 2006, 2005, 2006. He had just gotten elected. I moved to Chicago. I'm working for Obama. My job is I write letters of recommendation for nonprofits who need a senator's letter of recommendation. So that's my job. This is before ChatGPT, so you get people like me, smart guys who can write. And my job, they solicit the senator for recommendation. I run it to his chief of staff. His chief of staff reads over the proposal or reads over my recommendation. And then the chief of staff was a guy by the name of Ken Bennett. If you don't know, Ken Bennett is the father of one Chancellor Bennett, also known as Chance the Rapper. So Chance, the independent rapper, is not really independent. His Chance is like I've made. Like his dad was one of the biggest Democratic operators in the city of Chicago, and like Chance as an independent rapper has the Obama's phone numbers like in his speed dial. So anytime you hear Chance make anything political, just know that thing has been run up to the highest level. Anyway, so I'm working for Obama. My job is to write letters of recommendation for 501c3s who want a letter of recommendation from the senator. And there are two things that are off about my job. One was I was sitting next to the girl whose job was to do the same thing for the people who are applying for the service academies. If you don't know, there are service academies, Air Force, Army, West Point, Annapolis, there are service academies. And in order to get to the service academies, you need a recommendation from a congressman or a senator. Someone in Congress, right? So either a representative or a senator. I think it might even be a senator. So what we get is a deluge of applications, but they'd all be white, right? So my job was to kind of hustle up a little bit and see if we can get some more black people to apply. But then I sat right next to the girl who would read the applications. And so we would give, let's say, 25 letters of recommendation for these kids to get to the service academies. 20, like half of those, not 20, out of those 25, 10 to 15 would just go to donors' kids, friends of friends of friends of donors. So those letters of recommendation those were donor kids. All right, so then you got 15 going to the people who are applying to get a letter of recommendation from the senator in order to go to one of the service academies. And all of those are white. And so my job was to try to drum up some black ones. And so I would drum up some black ones, but then I saw the person who would make the first cut. So we get like 150 applications for 15 letters of recommendation. So the first cut's like SAT and grades. So anyone I would drum up, they were gonna be gone from that first cut anyway, just because of math. If you don't know, you just know, right? If you're black and you're scoring like that on the SAT and the grades, then you're going to an Ivy League school anyway. You're not going to a service academy, unless like your parents went to a service academy or there's something like bizarre about your upbringing, right? So all the kids that I would have recruited, they were cut. They would be cut, right? And then you have this kind of like twit who's reading this, like, and I was just like sitting next to this 23-year-old sorority girl who's just like reading through all of these applications, deciding who makes the third cut, who of the people we're going to interview, who then after we interview gets the letter. So like that was a whole anti-black process from top to bottom. And I wasn't really about that. And, I was about to say something before I got fired for this other thing. And now we're going to talk about the thing I got fired for. So one guy had a really good program. It was a nonprofit. They wanted to help parents help people in prison get their GEDs. And so like, it was like a pretty extensive like college program, but he wanted to do it like in a more robust way with like African-American studies and all of that stuff. And he needed some money and he was going to apply for some grants, but Obama's chief of staff didn't want Obama to seem soft on crime. So we wouldn't write the letter for the prison program. Because you remember in the early 2000s, people were trying to figure out where Democrats were in crime and stuff like that. So, and Obama was always an angler, and the office was like about his angling for his upcoming presidency, and they didn't want like anything, his name on anything that might end up looking soft on crime. And so they wouldn't write the letter. And so that's when I had a fit. I was like, look, Bennett, like, this isn't right. Like, these are the kinds of things we should support. And that's when they decided, you know, I was mouthy about it. And that's when they decided that maybe I wasn't the right fit in the office. I was a little bit too independent to be a team player in the office. And so that's how I got let go from Barack Obama's Senate office in 2006. But then 2 years later, I'm working at a bookstore playing Mission Impossible in my head. Is my mic messed up? Are you not getting what I'm... Whoa! Are you not getting what I'm getting? Do you hear me? Can you hear me now? All right. So 2 years later. All right. So yes, you can hear me now. Well, I hope you got the interesting part of the... Did you guys get the story about me standing up for the Negroes and then getting let go from the office because I said, Ken Bennett, you should write this letter for the nonprofit that goes into... Okay, you got all that? Good. So 2 years later, it's me in... Oh, you got it partially. Oh, well, it's a good story. I might tell it again at a different time. But 2 years later, it's me slipping the note into Barack Obama's book, looking at the man face to face. Because I never met him when I worked at his office. His office was just kind of kept clean in the back because he was in Washington. But I did meet him. When he came and was buying books from me. And so I slipped in the note, and then that was that. I slipped in the note, and then I like had to relax once he left because that was kind of a thing. What I didn't do now, and what I'm going to give you 2 bits of wisdom that you're not going to get unless you do Iron Me at Night, which is worth the cost of admission right now. What I didn't do is I didn't take a picture because I thought it was gauche to ask him for a picture. I saw someone else like ask for a selfie at the time. Selfies weren't that big of a deal at that time, but like I just thought it was just gauche to ask him for a picture, so I didn't ask him for a picture. And now I know that like when you're in a position like that, just go ahead and ask for the picture. Why not? You lose nothing. No, yeah, I like he's at least 6'1". Obama's at least 6'1". So I didn't ask for the picture. Also, by the way, when you ask for a picture with someone who's a big deal, what you want is the fist to fist. You don't just kind of want to stand there smiling like an idiot next to them. That's not the same. You want the fist. You want his fist and your fist, and because like that means you're like in it, a solidarity. We're in it together. You want fist to fist. You want 2 fists. You want fist to fist here, your hand in his hand, fist, and you want one of these too. But if you just get this one, that's great. You want his fist. You don't just want to be standing there grinning like an idiot. You want like actual, like we're in it doing work together. It's very important in the quality of pictures. The more you know. So always ask for the picture. Don't be too shy. It's part of the gig for them. And go for fist. Go for the fist to fist. Because that means you're not just a grinning idiot. You're like in it. There's solidarity. There's solidarity. So if there are any other big questions, I'll answer. But if not, I'm going to cut off one more plug if you appreciate what I'm doing. I'll do more of these night things, especially if you guys kick in. Put my kids to bed. Guess it's better than... Unwinding here is better than Netflix. It'll be story time with Irony. And I'll help you understand how Dems create anxiety by offering market solutions to market problems when really they need actual real rights and guarantees. like that is that. All right. No real questions. All right. Peace. I will talk to you another time. Would I be excited to meet him today? No, I would not. I have nothing to say to Obama. Like, there are so many other people I'd rather meet than Barack Obama. You would have to pay me, actually. You would have to pay me, like, to leave what I'm doing now. If it was like a choice between meeting Obama and going to my kid's soccer game, I don't know. I think I might pick the kid's soccer game because Obama's a hack. He gets, like, I was in Chicago, but I'm no longer in Chicago. There was just no, and a hack the way he is, there's just no talking him out of anything. I don't want to hear anything he has to say. There are so many other people. Dinner with Obama or dinner with Jay-Z. I don't know. I want to hear someone with an interesting mind. And who would actually be open, who isn't paid to be stupid, who is a little bit more bold, and a little bit less smug. I don't know. I think I wouldn't mind Cornel West. I think me and Cornel could get down. Actually, Glenn Lowry would be interesting. There are a lot of black people. I need someone with a little bit more of an open mind, who's a little bit more curious. I don't know. I like Zephyr Teachout. There are people, but Obama, I wouldn't want to talk to Obama. I wouldn't mind. There was a tennis dad who, Malavia Washington, the Washington dad. I wouldn't mind talking to some great black fathers. Malavia Washington. I would rather talk to LeVar Ball than Obama. There you go. I would rather talk. If you give me a choice between sitting down and talking to LeVar Ball and sitting down and talking to Barack Obama, give me LeVar Ball. I might learn something from LeVar Ball, and he might be open and I might be open, and then afterwards we might do business together, right? But, like, I'm not learning anything from Obama, and he's not open to anything I have to say. What about chat? Would you rather sit down and talk to LeVar Ball or sit down and talk with Barack Obama? I would rather talk to LeVar Ball. And I think even if I had to interview someone, I think I might rather interview LeVar Ball. And I think you would get more out of an interview with LeVar Ball than me with an interview with Barack Obama. Yeah, look, Ball it would be a more interesting interview. I think I'd get more out of it. I'd learn more about, like, the man raised the man who played a little bit of community college basketball raised 3 NBA players, even LaGello. Like, he did a lot right. He did a lot and did it like counterculture. We could trade notes on a White Spice. Someone up here said in the chat saying, like, my white wife helped pay for my university. I never dated a woman of color as we were both in dire straits and neither of us would have helped one another's financial situation. That's a little bit more mercenary than me. I just never cared about money. Book recommendations. Mercer Baradoran's The Color of Money. If you want to actually understand the racial wealth gap in a healthy way that's readable. I'm reading it with my kid. I've read it once. I've had her on. I've talked with her. She's actually a pretty cool lady. But Mercer Baradoran's Color of Money is a book you should read because it gets at where you want. If you have, like, a stomach for reading and you have, like, this is dense, The Man Not by Tommy Curry. It is wonderful though. And deep and provocative, but it is dense. It is dense. You're going to have to take your notes and you're going to have to work to get through it. Like, it's an academic book. But The Man Not by Tommy Curry, go ahead and read it. What else? Oh, if you care about left policy at all, this is the Bible for left policy. People just don't know about it. Democracy Unchained by Winfield. Everything you need to know about a quality of left programming that actually makes sense and can unify the nation is going to be in here. Yeah. And even including the arguments for the federal job guarantee. But he also has arguments here for legal care for all, because his argument is that, like, look, you can't be a nation of laws but have restricted access to lawyers. So we need to start thinking about lawyers as more of a public service thing and less as a for-profit thing, because everyone needs to have as much legal care as they need to deal with their legal problems if we're going to be a nation of laws. Because right now, the contingency thing depends on the lawyer's appetite for risk and how lucrative they think your case will be, and not whether you have, like, a justified grievance. So we need something like legal care for all on the model of Medicare for all. And, the rates can be negotiated, but everyone just gets the legal care we want, because we can't have a nation of laws but have restricted access to lawyers, or have lawyers be determined by how much disposable income you have. That's ridiculous. Then you don't have a nation of laws, you just have a nation of disposable income. Which is funny, because Peter Thiel bankrolled Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against Gawker, because Hulk Hogan wanted to sue Gawker because Gawker came out with a, you don't know what Gawker is, it was a news site. Hulk Hogan killed it. Gawker came out with a article about Hulk Hogan being racist, and Hulk Hogan got pissed at Gawker and wanted to sue Gawker, but he didn't have the money to sue Gawker and Peter Thiel bankrolled Hulk Hogan's ability to sue Gawker and then drove Gawker out of business with legal fees. And Peter Thiel, when asked about it, and because Peter Thiel had an other issue with Gawker, because I think Gawker might have outed him as gay. Gawker did something about it. When asked about the lawsuit, Peter Thiel said, well, these single-digit millionaires, and you could Google this, single-digit millionaire Peter Thiel. These single-digit millionaires, they don't really have real access to the legal system anyway. This is Peter Thiel's own words. He just admitted that if you're a single-digit millionaire, you're not really in the game. He can pretty much do whatever you want because you're not going to have the legal protection to get at him. So we don't live in a nation of laws. We live in a nation of people at the mercy of the people who can afford lawyers. And so if we're really going to live in a nation of laws, we need something on the can of legal care for all. And nobody should have an advantage that's tied to money. Ideas like that are in this book. Why the UBI is bad, why the federal job guarantee is good, why we should get rid of cash bail. Because either you are innocent until proven guilty, or you're not, or you're too dangerous to be out, or you're not. Because right now we just keep people in jail for just because we don't like them. And not because we necessarily think that they're a danger. We just don't like them out. And so we keep them in jail. So the bail system, he goes through the arguments against cash bail, and quite a few, of course, the arguments for Medicare for all. He goes through the arguments for child stipends. He thinks that just because you're born to poor parents doesn't mean that you should be punished for that. So every person should pretty much just get $800 a month per kid to raise their kid. And that child stipend, in addition to a guaranteed job. Because he looked at the USDA number about pretty much how much it takes to raise a kid. And then you make adjustments for childcare and all of that stuff. And it's about $800 a month, because he wants also guaranteed childcare. So, so he makes all of these arguments in here. Child stipends and all of these great things, and I think that's great. And so that's the book you should read. And if you just read those three, I think you'll be a better person and more interesting. Yeah. Do they think, yeah, the UBI is bad? Yeah, the UBI is bad because it makes you food for other people who actually produce. Like, a lot of people are lazy and they don't understand this, or they don't understand what work means. Real power is in production. The UBI is not enough money to produce. It's only enough money to consume what other people produce. You want production. You want like a good job. You don't like, you want, if you're a struggling actor, you don't want a UBI. You want a community theater house. That's like where everybody gets paid to act. Right? And maybe you want something like the WPA that not only get paid to act, maybe you have to do like a few extra drama classes at the high school, but pretty much you have like a theater with a building. And because a UBI, even if you get a bunch of people with a UBI together, they still don't have enough money to organize and produce anything, because that's not real money. It's not built to be, it's not made to be real money. What you need to do is give people a job. You can cut full-time from 40 hours to 30 hours. I don't think full-time needs to be 40 hours. Or it can be flexible. And then pay them enough so that they can work the job and still have disposable income. And then, if they save up, they can quit the job, or they can work the job and still be able to pay their dues-paying organization that could have enough money to buy a community theater house. Right? So that's real autonomy. Like, UBI doesn't buy autonomy. It just buys crafters who then get to produce what you buy. If it's a consumer economy, it's not really serious about production. This is why all these tech billionaires love it, because they know that you won't be able to produce on it. You'll just be able to like consume what they are producing. So Zuckerberg loves the idea of a UBI. Because real power is in production, not just not in consumption. And UBI just produces a nation of consumers. Yeah. So thank you for your time. Be back at a different time. Support the site. You know what to do. funkyacademic.com, $5, $15, or $50 a month. I'm giving you a quality of wisdom that you're not going to get anywhere else. Bye.